Ah, what am I doing? That's a good question. Well, I thought we had a sickle, but instead I'm using an angle, just like St. Joseph is holding. Very appropriate. Because ever since I got here, everyone's been saying, hey, St. Joe's has a sickle inside the church. And I said, a sickle? Where? And then they pointed me to that. And they said, yeah, it's for St. Joseph. I thought, a sickle for St. Joseph? Did he like to cut weeds? So I asked the expert. I went to Father Snyder and I asked him about the sickle and some other things in our church, and we got some really interesting stories. With regard to another design aspect of this church, the maroon, or
Yes.
People
The arch.
say it's the arch.
Yeah.
Some people say a sickle for
Yeah.
St. Joseph. Do
Yeah.
you know the significance?
John Ray was the architect. He was an architect from Lebanon, and I had interviewed him one time and questioned him about things. He said, well, I really designed it asymmetrically just to provide interest. And what we would call the keyhole at the center of the arch, he said, was just to show depth. And I said to him, some people have interpreted this as a sickle, as a reference to the harvest on the last day. He said, well, that's interesting, but it's not what I intended. But I know that's how it's interpreted. And the same thing with the narthex, although he did intend the design of the hardwood to be like the bow of a ship.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so he did intend that?
He did intend that,
okay.
Yes. The window, the modern window in the choir loft is, of course, a new window that was constructed by the Ed Burns studio in Doylestown, who was the liturgical artist for the church. And they also did the San Damiano cross, the baptismal font, the holy water fonts. They were responsible as the artists. They refurbished the stations from the old church. They did everything. The building committee, when they sat down and talked about the design of a crucifix, and whenever you have a committee trying to make a decision about art, it's sort of bedlam sometimes, but it really worked out well, because there wanted to be an emphasis that we were building not just a church building, but a church community. And the San Damiano cross, in response to Jesus saying to Francis, build my church, seemed to be perfect. So it is new, the design is new for St. Joseph. I mean, it's a new cross, but that's the reason that it was selected.
And with the wood in the middle, and the wood theme, is that have any particular significance?
I don't know that there's any significance. It's to add interest and beauty, and when you walk in, the wood takes you immediately to the cross. I spoke with one of it's hard wood like you would use on a floor. And one of the workers who was here, who did it, he said, I was contacted about laying hardwood at the new St. Joseph Church. And I said, of course. He said, but they didn't tell me it was on the ceiling. So there was, of course, a lot of scaffolding. It's all tongue and groove. It was quite an elaborate process to get that there. And the design, too, of the ceiling, the triangles in each of the sides was changed. You design a church, and then you sit down and you look at the finances. And they had to change the design of the ceiling because of expenses. And one of the things that really they didn't take into account, or forgot or whatever, was that you were supposed to be able to, there was supposed to be enough room between the ceiling and the roof that you could walk and change light bulbs. Well, when they lessened the design, you couldn't change light bulbs, except for the edge behind the vents. There's a walkway, and so you can go up there and you can change the lights in the center. But I don't know if it's still there because the church has been painted, but if you look in the back on the right side, there was a little bit of it almost looks like damage. It's hard to see, and I don't know if it's still there. But actually, one of our workers was up there changing lights and slipped and almost fell through the roof. But fortunately, he was okay.
Is there anything else that, in the consideration of the building of this church, that the original design or the original idea had formed and then was just tossed aside because it wasn't practical or it wasn't affordable?
One of the things was there was to be, behind where you have the statues of Joseph and Mary, there was behind there another room that would have served as a confessional and also a bride's room. But when they had to pare down the cost, that was lost. And when the church was dedicated, it was finished, it was completed. All of the art was here. The only thing that wasn't finished the day before were the kneelers. And it's an interesting story that the workers who were doing that, the professionals, said, we're just not going to be able to get this done. And it was a parishioner who said, we are going to get this done. And he got together a group of men of the parish who spent all night before the dedication, so that when we came in the morning, everything was complete.
Thanks, Father Snyder. It's so awesome to learn those interesting tidbits about our church, especially if we weren't here or around when it was built. I know so many of our parishioners were, but so many of us have not. So it's really been wonderful to catch up on that history. Next week, we're going to learn about the history of our parish and one person who was so instrumental in building our church that, well, I'll give you a hint. The name's on the sign. Join us then, but until then, God bless you and know of our prayers for you, and perhaps see you at Mass this weekend. God bless you.